This is our late 2014 Mac Mini. We bought it in 2015, and you can even see the YouTube video where I unbox it. And we had it ever since, and now I will give you an update how it fared over the years, and if you're happy with it or not. Well, I can say right away we are very happy with this little guy, even though it is my least favorite Mac Mini ever made. Why is that so? Because they removed the ability to upgrade RAM for no reason. The previous model, which I think is the best Mac Mini ever made, there you could have dual hard drives and upgradable RAM. While it still looks the exact same and has even the same kind of a plate under there, you were still allowed by Apple to upgrade your RAM. While on this one, they did it for no reason other than have planned obsolescence. And unfortunately, it was the only Mac Mini we could have gotten back then. And we wanted a Mac, and we didn't want to spend a lot of money. You know, that's also not a good combination. And we also have this cinema display, which we, want to use because it's a beautiful monitor. So we could either get the trash can Mac Pro, which, is just not gonna happen it doesn't matter how rich we are. But, or this, there's only these two desktops available. So I was kind of pissed because I had to go with this. Nevertheless, we ordered it with 8 gigabytes of RAM. The stock configuration had 4 gigs, and to have somewhat of, some future proofing, 8 gigs did the trick. And I don't think we will ever need more than 8. In fact, 8 is actually overkill. So back then we had to take this insanely overpriced option of 8 gigabytes of RAM just to have future proofing. But it was a good decision nevertheless. It still pisses me off. Well, here are the exact same specifications as it shipped with. 1.4 gigahertz Intel Core i5, that's the stock processor. What I also don't like about this Mac Mini model year is you couldn't get a quad core. You could get an i7, but you couldn't get a quad. And again, I don't know why. The previous one had a quad i7, and David has this very Mac, the late 2012 Quad i7 server Mac Mini. I think that is the best Mac Mini they ever made. While on this one, you had no RAM to upgrade, and you couldn't get a quad, and you couldn't get dual hard drives. So we ordered it with a 500 gigabyte stock hard drive, which was painfully slow, and I replaced it, I think not even a year after we had it, with an SSD. And that was the best idea ever, because now, since it has the SSD, it is very fast, very responsive, it behaves very good, even though it's still the stock 1.4 gigahertz 4th gen i5 and dual core. It's still HD graphics, but it boots fast, it responds fast. When you open up Firefox, boom, it's open. When you open up App Store, it's open. And this was not the case with the hard drive. Now, when we still had the hard drive, we would sit there and click on the Firefox logo and then wait minutes upon minutes until it finally opens up. Very sluggish, very slow. Same when booting, it took forever to boot. It was painfully slow. It had the 5400 RPM drive, which is just, even in 2014, that was not really great and up to modern standards, especially for this price they went for. Yeah, they had it, and so we swapped it for a Samsung 850 EVO 500 gig SSD, and that did fix it, and that made it a very fast and quick system. And of course Apple would have said, oh yeah, well, because the computer's so slow, well, there's nothing you can do about it, you need to get a new one. No, you just upgrade it with an SSD, and it kicks it in the ass, and it makes it go way quicker than you would ever imagine, especially when it comes from a hard drive. I really highly recommend putting an SSD in one of these. It really speeds it up and makes it usable. It also runs the OSs all pretty fine. I run the latest here, Mojave, and it came with Yosemite, so it went up 4 versions now, so 10.11, 10.12, 13, and now 14. And I've never seen any kind of speed decreases, and that is good, I guess. Um, and it performs good. It also is very reliable. It never showed, like, it never had problems. It never crashed. It always did its job, while not being incredibly powerful. It always worked all the time, and it's also, by the way, always on. This very rarely gets shut down. It's mostly on all the time, and especially now with the SSD, you do not notice it at all. Like, it's very, very silent, and even a CPU fan, when it kicks in, you can barely hear it. So this, from this perspective, also the form factor, it's tiny, it doesn't use any disk space. It's not bad. But then again, the soldered in RAM and just the limited options you could have back then, that also, well, I can say I like it, but I don't like it. I do like the current Mac Mini more, the latest one they have. There you can finally upgrade the RAM again. Which, ooh, how nice of them, right? Well, nevertheless, we are not gonna switch this out like for a new one anytime soon, because first of all, it does everything it needs to do. It mostly does office tasks, like 85% of its time, and if not, then in the Photos library. So also nothing hardcore, and for this reason, there's no need for a faster processor or anything. So this older i5 is completely up to the task of doing that. The 8 gigabytes of RAM are completely enough for what it needs. Although, again, 4 gigs would get a little close to, being not enough. So I'm glad we went with the 8 gigs and not the 4. And the 5000 HD graphics, while they're not really anything special, the most hardcore it does is maybe play a video alongside it being in Photos, and it can totally do that. So I just can't stress this enough. If this didn't have the SSD, this wouldn't be here anymore. If this still had the hard drive, it would be unusably slow and annoying to use. But now it's still very fast and responsive, and there's no reason to upgrade it with a different or newer Mac. If you're asking about the upgrading procedure, well, it's really, they do not want you to do it, and it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's also not the hardest thing. You can definitely get it done if you take your time. Of course, the whole thing needs to come out, the motherboard needs to come out, so you can access the hard drive, which is a normal hard drive, so 2.5-inch drive, but getting there is the hard point. But it's totally worth it. It's like really totally worth it. And it still has an SD card reader, which gets used all the time for USB 3s and LAN and HDMI, which is good for a lot of people with non-Apple monitors. Most of the time, non-Apple monitors have all HDMI, and only the Pro monitors have got mini display port or so. But this is, of course, connected via mini display port. And yeah, it's a very nice machine, but at the same time, it's not like one of Apple's best they ever produced. In fact, it's actually, unfortunately, not that great of a product when you, look at the construction of it. But this was only the beginning. Then they came out with a MacBook, which is a piece of trash, and the MacBook Pro, which is a piece of trash, and the Mac Pro, which already was a piece of trash. But yeah, so yeah, then when you compare it to all of these, it's actually pretty good. Also, a little rant before I close out this. This is a late 2014 model, and they did not refresh this for until, I think, 2018. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember last year, I think that was the Mac Mini, the new one. And they had good 4 years with the same processor, the same specs and everything for the same price, and they never upgraded it. That is just very annoying. But thankfully they finally did that. But they raised the prices, but at least they upgraded the hardware and they redesigned it. Anyway, guys, what can I say about this Apple Cinema display other than it's totally overpriced? But yeah, back then, it's definitely not a bad monitor. It's for sure a very nice monitor. I don't want to film over there because there's a lot of personal stuff. Um, it's got resolution of 2560 by 1440, which is nothing incredible, but nowadays standards. But I think it's still a beautiful monitor. It's the same monitor as I have in my 2010 iMac, which is also very bright still. And since this is getting a lot of use, also, it's still looking good. Probably it's just a Samsung or LG monitor rebranded it with a nice fancy Apple aluminium design, but who cares? It's a nice display. So yeah, that was the update of the late 2014 Mac Mini in 2019. And I hope we'll still have this for another couple of years. I think we will have this for at least another 3 years. And yeah, so thanks for watching and see you later.